Afternoon, everyone. I believe we have quorum. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Trustee Deborah Williams, Chair of the Program and School Services Committee. Today is Wednesday, May 7th, 2025, and I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome committee members, trustees, staff, and members of the public. And to begin, we'll rise for the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Please be seated. The next item is the approval of the agenda. I need a mover and seconder, please. Moved by Trustee Dawson, seconded by Trustee Hastings. All in favor? Aye. And that carries. We will now, if there are any declarations of conflict of interest, trustees have a chance to do that now. If anyone has a possible conflict of interest, you've had a chance to review the agenda and recommendations. Are there any possible conflicts of interest? Seeing none, we'll move on. We are now at item 4 on the agenda, delegations. Delegations allow for the public to address committees of the board and are designed to ensure that members of the public can provide information and perspectives to trustees as we navigate the decision-making process. Delegates are reminded that they are to provide input in a respectful and constructive manner and should not engage in any behavior contrary to the board's code of conduct, human rights policy, or delegation procedure. This evening, we have one delegation. Is a delegate with us here online or in person? Okay, we're just letting the delegate into the room, into the space online. The delegate, Lori Green, Model Schools Pediatric Health Initiative. Lori Green, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful.
Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you clearly. Thank you. So we have the one delegation tonight. Ms. Green, you will have 5 minutes to present your delegation. You will hear a bell ring at the end of your time, near the end of your time. Trustees may ask questions of clarification following your delegation as well. Each trustee will have 3 minutes to do so. Please stay, just hold until we move to the next item, just in case trustees have a question of clarification. So welcome, Ms. Green. You may begin your 5 minutes.
Thank you. So thanks for the opportunity to speak to the motion you'll be considering tonight regarding school absences for students with a special education designation. I'm speaking in favor of this motion, requesting further data collection to better understand why this is double the rate of non-special education students. My name is Lori Green, and I work at the Nelson Mandela Park Model School Clinic as the family doc, doing the initial intake evaluation and triage with students and their families and caregivers. Here is a quick snapshot of the board reach of the school clinics partnered with Unity Health Toronto at Nelson Mandela Park and the clinic at Parkdale Junior and Senior. In 2023, 1,100 students and families were seen from 186 PSSC elementary schools, and almost half of the families made less than $50,000 per year. In this role, I have observed a troubling trend concerning barriers to school attendance for students with disabilities who faced economic challenges. SEAC reps have reported seeing the same trends with their associations. They've reported receiving increased calls from families reporting barriers to attending school, reduced days, or not being able to attend at all. This reflects the experience in the school clinic of families increasingly reporting similar trends and describing the financial impact this has on family. Families have reported repeated calls from the school to pick up their child early, requests to take their child home for lunch daily, students told to stay home until there is an appropriate placement or staff was available, students advised not to come to school, and not registered for a month. People for Education described a similar data from principals, 63% reporting anonymously that they had asked parents to keep children home. Parents, caregivers described losing jobs, ultimately applying to Ontario Works, and being challenged by food insecurity. They are pushed or sink deeper into poverty through actions as seemingly innocuous as daily lunch at home. There is a close association between disability and poverty, with 40% of the low-income population reporting a disability in adulthood. And this is the Stats Canada data that's reported on the disability survey every 5 years. The school system is well placed to change outcomes for students with disabilities, whether it is employment destination or requiring fewer supports in a day program after the age of 21. Similar to healthcare, education is a service that is required under legislation, the duty to accommodate. Systemic ableism results in a lack of implementation and enforcement in both arenas, which I understand both in my work and in watching the school system. It is an equity issue. I really would applaud the staff that I've seen in the schools, in Nelson Mandela that I've been in, and in school support team meetings that really are going the extra mile for taking, and I applaud the leadership of special ed for actually implementing a modified day form so that, that they can better understand this. I do think that this is not all therapy. Everybody's not in the ABA for their absence, which the data did show. But really we need feedback from families, caregivers, students about what the reasons, why those absences happened, why those steps happened that they're not in school. So service shouldn't require champions, it should be routine. The motion outlines the next steps to produce data that will be required for improved practice, but also ultimately data the TDSB will need for advocacy with the ministry for funding of special education, similar to most boards in the province. So we know this is a systemic problem with special education funding. We know trustees are facing incredible pressure from the ministry, and we know that all boards are having a challenge meeting special education, and people's rights should not be in this position. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you for your delegation, Lori. I do have some questions. Trustee Dawson.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you so much, Lori, for your delegation. It's nice to hear from you. I was wondering if you could send us a written copy of the delegation. You have a lot of great facts in it, and I was hoping to review it later if that's possible.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, happy to send on.
Amazing, thank you.
Yeah, there is Sloan Freeman, who's the pediatrician running the research arm of this, actually has quite a bit of data, much beyond this, that would be available as well.
Thank you, Trustee Dawson. Trustee Luskin.
Thank you very much, Dr. Green. It's wonderful that you still stay involved to advise us over many, many, many years. It's so sincerely appreciated. What I wasn't 100% clear about, and my clarification point is there a specific ask of the board?
Yeah, like I think that part, and sorry, I didn't read the motion out because I do know LaToya Aldridge from the ICCAC is actually doing the ITC's delegation on this and is sort of an expert in this area and was reviewing this, but the ask is really, can you consult families on the reasons why this is happening to help inform that modified day form, and can we find out how that can we incorporate? The board has done this excellent research before about looking at the various identities of students and how they impact their special education program and placement, and good changes have come out of that. So we're looking for the same kind of thing. Can we tie income data to school absence, and can we better tease apart who's not in and what are the repercussions of saying that we can't accommodate you, that you have to stay home, because for some families they can easily come up with other options, and there's many families who cannot.
Really appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Laskin, and I have Trustee Wong.
It's good to have you here. It's amazing that, as Trustee Larson said, that you have been providing ongoing advocacy on behalf of students and on behalf of the community. One part of the presentation that I need a little bit of clarification to make sure that I did not hear it wrong. You mentioned about where students with special needs whom might not be able to have a support for that day, and they would be advised to stay away, to go home. Did I get it wrong?
No, I think, well, and not that you got it wrong at all, Trustee Wong. I think it's more about we don't actually know the full reasons about it. Families will say they were told there was not somebody there that day, or
Right.
special education supports were pulled to fill absences elsewhere in the building. So we know there's a whole variety of those reasons. Sometimes for families, they just say, we all think it's best for you to have your kid home at school, but people's jobs don't really have that hour break in the middle of the day for many of these people. And so that's enough to tip into much lower income.
Right.
So I think for those things, we're looking for this data to help unpack what that is by having principals complete that modified day form that special ed staff, I think rightly implemented. But I think you need consultation from families about what the reasons for that are. Like, what are the options on that list? What are people filling out? And to have consultation from SEAC and ICCAC on that would be great.
Right. So recognizing that there are different circumstances that would lead to not having the support there at school, do you have any? I don't exactly know whether I'm asking the right question, but do you have any data to document when that kind of situation arises, that students is advised to go home?
Yeah, no, like, so from our standpoint in the school clinic, that was not a research, like that was not an endpoint that they were looking at. That other thing, this sort of came up along the way when you hear it repeatedly with families. So I don't have an absolute number. I do know it's happened often enough in the sort of one-day clinic I have a week to become a theme over the last probably 3 years or so after 10 years of doing this. And you can see the trends changing. I have asked Dr. Freeman about whether this can be an endpoint. When can this be something that's asked? It's a pretty lengthy intake questionnaire from the research standpoint that not everybody can complete. Like, we often do try and help them with completion of things, but it's not easy for everybody to get those done. But we could definitely ask about that becoming an endpoint or a retrospective analysis that's just recorded in the chart notes. I mean, none of all that stuff for her, all that research, just to reassure people, that's all anonymized. The data is not tied to any individual student and not identifiable because it did go through the research ethics boards at Unity Health.
So my apologies, the time has expired.
Thank you, Laurie.
No problem. No, thanks. No.
Thank you, and I'll pass the chair as I have a question.
Go ahead, Trustee Williams.
So thank you so much, Dr. Green. I remember you, Laurie, from years back at SEAC. and you're still here doing that work. Thank you so much. I just had a question of clarification around the ask and the collaboration, the cooperation between CAC and SEAC. It sounds like there have been some discussions between the two CACs. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. No, and I think it came about, that piece, because that lens, the intersectional lens, I think was, there's a certain different framing of the two committees, and I think we felt like we were helping to bring that intersectional lens of income and poverty, which is part of the community's mandate, to this, and really going off what the special education, like their expertise, sort of parental expertise, representatives' expertise in this area, and sort of marrying the two together. So bringing that aspect of families and the huge impact this has, and really looking at disability as an identity, right? As an identity that faces discrimination, and that is sort of each group sort of helping to support and raise the other's issues.
Wonderful.
I think special ed is often siloed into special education alone, and then once you graduate from school and you're looking for a job, you are in that group of 40% of which is poor and is not, and the education system is really well placed to launch those people into a better position. And so really going after poverty prevention through education.
Okay, wonderful. And in my about 1 minute left of time, just to clarify with regard to the ask, you know, it's working in collaboration with those two CACs, and it looks like the ask is information gathering and understanding of the day form, the modified day form. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's
okay.
Right. Yeah, I think LaToya is going to answer, sort of add more detail to that. Experts there. So.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you again, Dr. Green. Let me just check if I have any other speakers. I'll take back the chair.
Turn the chair.
And seeing no other speakers, thank you again, Dr. Green, for your delegation and your, I would say, decades of dedication to special education. Have a great rest of the evening.
Thank you too. Thanks.
Okay, so at this point, we are moving on in the agenda to the Community Advisory Committee reports. And the next item, the Intercity Community Advisory Committee report of April 17th, 2025, school absence rates for students with special needs. And who will be speaking to this? Welcome. What's her name? Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and your role to get us started, and then I'll give you the time to present the report.
Sure. My name is LaToya. I'm part of the Inner City Community Advisory Committee, and I'm there as a parent and a member of the community, and here to present and request for support as well for the motion.
Thank you. And you have time now to present your report and any recommendations contained in it.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate, number one, just everyone here willing to hear and listen. I think this is a step that many parents are, you know, just even part of the decision-making process, just knowing that their voices are coming forward. It is part of this process that really embodies TDSB support for parents. So I know we sent the motion and the report, so I probably won't regurgitate entirely because I can get little one long-winded. What I'll do is just speak to it a little bit. I think the key here for this is really bringing into the viewpoint of TDSB, the human aspect of absenteeism. You know, sometimes for some children, the only words that they hear is just that they're skipping school. And while that in a very concrete context might be one piece of the information, it is not all the information. So with the frame of it being the human aspect, and that is what we hope to accomplish with this, I hope that that part is received above all. And what I'm going to encourage is the acceptance of the motion, so that way we can start to take progressive steps towards gathering data on the absenteeism. And once we gather the data, looking at how we disseminate the data. So there is definitely two different parts to any survey in that light. Absenteeism, it is not an isolated or individual issue that is just at one school level. But many parents, when they do seek for support, they do feel isolated in this scenario, and they do feel that their concern is just about them only, and no one else is having that concern. However, through other community engagements, online or offline, they tend to find a body of support system, others who are having the same issue, but the same issue without understanding from the board itself what is happening. So with that being the challenge, what the challenge here is that this assumes that when the parents are when the parents are first, facing the challenges and are looking for support, oftentimes they're recommended to go through the parent protocol. But going through the parent protocol assumes that that the concerns are just a one-off for the parent. It also assumes that all parents feel comfortable going through that direction, and it ignores the fact that the concerns that are being raised have been raised already many times. And most parents are at that point frustrated and feeling like giving up. There's a parent that I spoke to that I had to just sort of accept that parent's position when they mentioned that they just will not be sending their child back to TDSB and no longer sends their children to TDSB. And I think that is probably not the message that we want the board to that we think sort of resonates with the board's multi-year strategy, or even resonates with what the board and all the human beings at the board really believes. So when we bring this, it is not because it is just one-off. There are many individuals who are feeling isolated, and the management of what the challenges are being done in isolation. With it being done in isolation, we miss a bunch of key information that we can collect, so that way we can get to understand. And that's where we are right now. We are at the place where I'm asking is that what we do is we collect that data. We ask real questions. We look at the data that we already have collected before. And we also look at what information is being missed in that data collection. Also, just a key point here is just that with going through some of the other avenues that have been done in the past, in that more in the silos approach, the truth is that it's not that I don't truly believe that the staff are somehow lacking in their job. I think it's more that this is an exhausting process. And it is a heavy burden to face and to bear and to find support for so many students and for so many families. And then that sort of exhausts all the processes. And, parents feel like they're not being heard or being understood. And there's only so much time you can imagine for between the staff and all the other escalated forms to be able to look, to dive deep, and then to address that concern, and not only address that concern, but also to develop some form of a trend analysis. And with this approach of collecting the data, we hope that you can bring into the conversation other things that may have been missed in looking at absenteeism, where it is not just a number on, how many kids do we have at TDSB. It is a number of what do we understand about the kids who are not attending school on a regular basis. And just a closing thought here is, I know there's also talks of funding and all these other things. And number one, I know that parents, they know that TDSB needs more funds, but the messaging that's going out, I listened in on even just at the Legislative Assembly meeting and comments from the Minister of Education. It really painted a picture that did not quite connect with the full and all the information that's there. And with that, I'm hoping that, by collecting and really reaching out to parents and doing these surveys, we're sending a message to parents that the board cares. The board wants to hear. The board, it matters to the individuals at the board that there are some individuals who are not, some kids who are not attending school, and that it matters to us to the point where we want to understand why. What happens for many of those students is that they feel like they are heard. I'll tell you at a personal level, I was once that student. This is not a since COVID issue where I did not attend school all the time. There were a myriad of reasons which you probably can't get into, but it was hard. I today have my master's degree. It was only during my master's degree that I realized that what I was trying to accomplish was accommodation. It was not that I was trying to skip school. There are sensory issues, there's under support, there's delayed diagnosis, and there's all sorts of other concerns that were there. If proper data was collected then, I think not just for me, but a bunch of my other friends who don't share the same story as I do, where they were able to move above their present case and those seniors and better understand themselves. I think that they would have, benefited greatly from that. Many of them are currently business owners, and some have had, negative adverse experience in society. But one of the key things that comes up in conversation today is that, man, I wish if I understood better why I was facing these challenges. And I think with that being said, it's just looking at that historical message. And then when I talk to other parents and they say to me, my children are not able to come to school and they can't explain why, I can draw on some of my experience and I can share. There was a parent I was speaking to and her child was in the room, and I said, I had a tough time some days just getting to school, feeling like getting to school and just getting my body to move. I know what that is like. I know how to, how that can really break a human being. But I want to tell, when I say that to them, they begin to feel heard. And you can see the physical reaction. There's a parent now that where their child is now going to school through conversations with me and just knowing that somebody had gone through a similar experience, and where that somebody that went through that experience not only understood, heard, but also validated that experience that they're having, it is not because they are incompetent. It is not because they're slackers. It is not because of any of the other frames that are there. And, what I hope is that when you look at this motion, you understand that it is not just about saying we have a bunch of kids missing. It is about how can we tell these children we hear them. And I can tell you that many of them who for the first time feel like somebody has heard them, there is a physical change in even how they sort of sit up and how they sort of approach the next challenges. So, just read it, just looking at the motion, just keeping in mind that there is definitely the data collection part, and then there's a dissemination part. And we know that the skilled employees at the board are able to sort of differentiate between what information, when they collect it, they can draw meaning from. And once they collect it, how they can be able to protect the privacy. For someone that comes from the financial services that has done a lot of data collection in the financial services on a lot of individuals across the globe, I can really understand privacy concern at a much more granular method sometimes, because at times the data collection that we did, it was not to find the many, it was to find the few and how we disseminated that information. So it is definitely an important concept. And what I do know is that in many data analysis and data collection, privacy is part of the job description. And so with collecting the data, it is about hearing and telling the parents and students, we hear you, we want to understand, and we're here to change the narrative that has been spoken about you, because there's more to the story than just about missing a couple of classes or skipping school.
Thank you so much, Ms. Aldridge, especially for sharing your personal perspectives and experiences. I'm just looking around the room to see if there are any questions from trustees. Trustee Dawson.
Thank you. Thanks so much, LaToya, for coming and for sharing your very passionate words with us. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to the collaboration with SEAC on this motion?
Yeah, the good thing is, I guess the interesting thing that I am also on SEAC, and I'm part of the special education, I guess, committee that has been started. So in terms of SEAC, what we've done, even at the earlier stages of trying to understand the parents and the concerns, especially given the economic factors that are affecting the people and the parents, is we communicated with SEAC at a very early stage, and we invited the chair to come to our meeting, and we asked outright, looking at the challenges of absenteeism and the economic factor, we recognize that sometimes there are disability support needs that are in there. Can we go ahead with a motion that is, going to look at all of these pieces together? And he gave a resounding yes to proceed. So this is not just us. The good thing about Inner City Community Advisory Committee is that we do reach out, we do connect with different advisory committees. So this is definitely us working as collaborators, to understand those that are in our community, collecting this data at a broader, at a broader level to be able to understand it all, but also making sure that we bring in the intersectional language. So SEAC is definitely aware of this as well.
Wonderful, thank you. My next question is for staff. So-
Trustee Dawson. So what we're going to do, Ms. Aldridge, the trustees will have questions for you. And when you're finished with your presentation and answering the questions, then we'll excuse you. And then we'll have the opportunity for trustees to ask questions of staff.
Okay.
So I have, you're finished with questions here? So we have Trustee Klein for questions for Ms. Aldridge.
Thank you, and through the chair, thank you for beautiful deputation, especially your personal story, which really reminds us why this is so important. And I truly believe that. I believe that as a teacher who's taught in model schools, that this is incredibly important. But so my question is, though, I would like to see this kind of study over all the schools.
Yes.
And I understand what you're saying with the, the connection between, the absenteeism and an economic factor. That is clear. But in terms of why are these students absent more so than others, I want to see that I want to see the data at all schools in all neighborhoods. I'm just wondering if you can comment on that, please.
For sure. And I think that was part of the consideration in just even how my brain is structured in data analysis itself, is that in order to understand, if we have a data set and we're looking at information for one group, we are truly not going to have clear insight if we isolate the data and we don't collect it for all. So I do agree. And I think part of that motion was to make sure that although we're collecting it through the lens of that socioeconomic factor, we are looking to be able to understand, because then we don't want to approach the data collection with assumption. So that's why in there we're coming through that the lens ICCAC and saying in the data collection, please include these items, because we know that those who are in our community are facing this at a different level. And, those are based on anecdotal stories that we hear where parents come up and even at some of the meetings and share their stories. So we're collecting it through that lens and, across all schools. I think it can give bigger insights to be able to help us to understand not just the socioeconomic, but also what absenteeism looks like as well across the board.
Thank you. I have Trustee King next.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you as well for the presentation. I really appreciate this coming forward. And I really appreciate the intersectional approach that you've brought. I think that that's a word that we use. It's something that we speak about, but really framing the conversation and bringing in a way that we can look at how students with multiple identities, multiple challenges are affected, and actually coming to that in a way that is an intersectional approach to the conversation and solution finding. So thank you for that. Absolutely appreciate the poverty reduction lens as well. Some of my colleagues will know that I've brought up some of the recent report cards on poverty in Ontario. And we know that we see an overrepresentation with folks living with disabilities, with racialized communities, and that intersection as well. So this is a really important place to be speaking. I think you touched on a few things that are really interesting and probably out of the scope of this recommendation is about. But I've certainly heard anecdotally from families that have had work interrupted, have lost work, have chosen to become unemployed, who have left their jobs so that they can have their attention to the family because of these needs. And you also mentioned families that are leaving the system. And I think those are all important aspects that we should be talking about and exploring. But again, I know that those are out of the scope of this recommendation, and I do appreciate that it's quite focused. I think my question at this point for you builds off of Trustee Dawson, and there isn't specific timing around this for the collection, but I imagine there's going to be some amount of time that's going to be needed for the collection, for the analysis, for this work to continue. And I'm just interested in how SEAC and ICCAC are set up. You've come together to initiate the request. I'm just wondering if you have working groups or a structure that can follow this along together through the course of the work, and whether you feel supported by staff in doing so.
And thank you so much for that question. I think it's a very important question as well, because definitely, in terms of, the support and also, working with committees. While we've been working, I think we've left it sort of some flexibility because we do want to work with the board as well to say, we know that this information is out, needs to be collected. There's already stories out there. So let's bring some of these stories in to understand it. But in terms of getting to those, individual things to say, how the board is going to go about making sure we get to work together. We do want to be respectful of their approaches, and we just ask that the board definitely includes us. I know SEAC is, a very big part of understanding not just one voice in disability, but taking a myriad of voices and understanding, just in terms of someone who's epileptic, someone who's autism. So there's so many different versions and stories there. So we're hoping that the board will, when they pass this motion, will understand the importance of the collaborative work and provide direction on how they set that up. So that's sort of where we are on that one, just working with the flexibility that's afforded to us.
That's great, thank you. So I appreciate hearing both the collaborative and the flexibility in moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us to the end of our speakers list. Thank you so much again, Ms. Aldridge, for coming and presenting the recommendations from ICCAC.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for hearing. Thank you for listening. I think, so just to close off, I think when I get to tell parents that the school board wants to hear from you, I think just how this conversation went today, it is probably one of the biggest reminders that they will have that their opinion, their children is that much of value at TDSB. So I really appreciate just you being willing to hear and participate in the conversation. Thanks.
Wonderful. Have a great rest of the evening. So at this point, it's open to questions from trustee. Well, do we want to hear from staff first on the report or? Yeah, okay. So. Let me give the opportunity. Did staff want to speak to the report first or take questions from trustees first?
Through you, Madam Chair, we've made some notes in the supplementary information that provides our advice. And I think that's all we would have to say on this issue.
Thank you. So the first trustee on the speakers list, Trustee Dawson.
Thank you through the chair. I was wondering if staff could comment on the request for quantitative data, specifically the point 1 student absence data broken down by school level, learning opportunities index, and also the IEP versus Ministry of Ed exceptionality. Do we collect that information and do we have any concerns with providing it to the committees?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'd refer the question to Executive Superintendent Palmer, who is online.
Good evening. I'm online. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. So with regards to attendance data, the Special Education and Inclusion Department does not collect attendance data. However, we do have an SIS department that is responsible for collecting data, and certainly that could be something that we could explore with them to get that information and that numbers from SIS.
Thank you through the chair. What is SIS?
It's
that-
it's the department that deals with all type of ONSIS data, all type of attendance data. They just collect the data for the system.
Through the chair, School Information Systems, I believe.
Thank
Okay,
you.
that's what I thought. Okay, so we don't currently collect it. Do we need a motion to collect it?
No, so we do collect attendance data is what I'm saying. I'm saying our department does not collect the data, but we do have a department that would have attendance data available. Specifically, I don't know if how deep they can go into the data with regards to breaking it down, students with an IEP, students without, and so forth. But that is something that certainly can be explored because they would have attendance data.
And if I may join the conversation, thank you, Nandy, and good evening, trustees. Just a reminder that we have launched our special education review, and data is currently being analyzed, and we have met with the committee once, and we have a consultation committee, and LaToya did mention that she's part of that committee. Our next meeting, the committee are going to have their first look at data, which will be focused on achievement data. Attendance data certainly can be analyzed, and we'll be taking feedback from the consultation committee, Trustee Dawson, as we dig deeper into the questions that emerge from the data that we're analyzing. Thank you.
Okay.
So in short, sorry to interrupt you. To be specific, a motion is not required. It really is the work of the the review committee, and it's going to be all about data. So we're looking forward to having it parsed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you through the chair. So just to be crystal clear, you are going to collect this data as written in this motion. Is that correct?
We already collect attendance data, and it is disaggregated in various ways by the research department, by exceptionality, and so on. So it is data that we can be, as we do, speaking to at committee level. Both we've been, Nandy has been a guest to ICCAC, as well as we speak frequently to SEAC. The other area of work that we are doing for trustees awareness, and it is in the report, is that we have an action plan committee that is looking at 3 specific areas. We're narrowing that and engaged in discussions about specific actions that staff will be focused on. The top 3 areas currently, I'll say there's intersection to attendance data, so we'll be coming into the work that we do. I'll say it's more closely aligned to communication to parents. And having an understanding of how they navigate our system, as well as what their rights are, how to work with a principal, with a superintendent to resolve concerns and so on. So there's lots of work connected to areas of concern.
Okay, thank you very much. So it sounds like number 1 is doable. Number 2, the modified day form, is that something that can be shared through the chair?
Thank you. I can respond to that. So we have the modified day form is an internal form that is for principals to capture and data centrally to be shared centrally and followed up on by the superintendent around students who are on a modified day. And so we have students on a modified day scheduled for a number of reasons. I just need to preface all of this by saying we are completely committed to ensuring that each student is welcomed and included every day in our schools, and to each student having equitable access to learning opportunities each and every day. And so that is why we've developed this process. The form is for principals to complete. We collect the data centrally, and the data is to be looked at by superintendents to follow up with their principals on the plan to get students back to school as quickly as possible. So it's not a parent form, it is a staff form where we gather the information. Why is the student off on a modified day? How long are they on a modified day for? What is the plan to get them back? Who was consulted prior to them being put on a modified day? And it's meant to be a short-term approach and in consultation with families. So the piece around getting information or input from families, we're very excited about getting that through the review. We're going to be having parent surveys as well as focus groups, and SEAC also held a town hall where we heard directly from parents. So we are getting that through another means, but the actual modified day form, Trustee Dawson, that they're referring to is a staff based form. Now, we've also shared data previously with SEAC on the number of students who are on a modified day schedule. So all of that has been done as well, and we continue to share with SEAC around information that we gather through our modified day form.
And if I may join the conversation, thank you, Nandy, through the chair to Trustee Dawson and the rest of the committee. Trustee Dawson, I think that you're going through each of the requests from the ICCAC. You'll see at the bottom that staff have asked for the committee to refer back to staff so that we can continue to collaborate. Your reflection that item number 1 was doable. I again would want to have the request sent to staff so that we can work with the 2 groups that have been started and not to preempt their work. There needs to be a sequencing. The review in itself is a very, very significant initiative. So we are going to need to prioritize what data we're looking at, when, and how is it connected to the work of staff. So I will reinforce, please, the request from staff is to refer this back to us so that we can work with the committees through the 2 consultation teams that we have going on. Thank you.
Thank you through the chair. I can appreciate that's the recommendation, but I would like to move this as a motion. So I think maybe some of the language might need to be amended to just say, therefore be it resolved that the special education review incorporate the following. And then collected student absence data, modified day form to be shared with SEAC and ICCAC, and then undertaking consultations. May I have some feedback on that direction, please?
Thank you. And through the chair, Nandy, I'll take this one if I could. The requests, Trustee Dawson, as long as you would say that the director consider and staff will analyze the information and in all of the, again, the special education review will be looking at these requests and analyzing how they connect to the priority areas and the sequence. We have not just committed to launching the special education review for this year. What Nandy and I, as well as the entire special education team, believe that a review needs to be cyclical. So our assurance is that this first year is going to lead to areas of action. We'll be tying it to the action plan. But in 3 years' time, we want to go out again and go deeper and continue to refine our practice. I appreciate that you're wanting to move this as a motion. I would just ask that you understand or see that these are operational items and that we'll need to take it into the operational planning that we have. Thank you.
And thank you, if I can, through the chair. I just want to refer back to the governance procedure that we went through and passed last year with respect to requesting information. Part of what that particular procedure says under 6.3.2 with respect to requesting data or information is that staff will assess the following information, determine the feasibility of the request, and or provide updates on the status of the request to the CAC if publicly shared already, B, if confidential information and or personal information, C, if the request is operational or governance related, or D, if operational, viable to strategically priorities, costs, workloads, resources, and implications. So I think we also want to make sure that as we go through this, that we're following our procedure, because we also do know that there will be further data requests from different groups as we go forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you through the chair. So I'm trying to figure out I'm on ICCAC, just so everybody knows, and I've been a part of months-long discussion and collaboration between SEAC and ICCAC on this. I do believe that a referral back to staff will not be received well by the committees, and I would like to work together to make a recommendation that we actually pass. And if it needs to say the director consider doing these things and incorporating that language into it will make it a viable motion, I would like to do that. So I guess that's my next question, is adding in that specific clause to consider, would that then be acceptable?
Through the chair, that would be appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So there are more speakers on the list, so we'll just wait for them to ask their questions, and then I would like to go back on to move the motion. Thank you.
The next speaker, Trustee Arts.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. So I just want to say thank you to our members and our advisory committees for bringing this forward. One question to staff. We had a motion last year to create an attendance report. Where is that at? In when can we expect that? Because I think there's a different level of reporting that's going to come to should be coming to the board at some point. And that connects directly to what's being asked for here.
Thank you. And through the chair, staff will have to take that back, and we're happy to get back to you with respect to that attendance report. I can't answer that at this point in time.
I'm sorry, I may support AD Salmon. And I apologize, I was speaking and I was on mute. So we were trying to support trustees at the same time. I remember that discussion very well, and I believe Trustee King, you had expressed great interest in that. Staff assured the trustees that we would be incorporating analysis of data in the multi-year strategic plan reporting back. We are trying to bring that report. It was delayed from May now to June to show you the timeline. And I anticipate that a very fulsome report will be happening in September that will be focusing on Achieve and Thrive. And in Achieve, we'll be incorporating the attendance data. We'll also see echoes of it when we are showcasing Belong data. Because of course our social workers support attendance and making sure that we are supporting students who have challenges with their attendance. We actually added 9 attendance counselors this year that are seeing really good positive impact for students. So lots more to come on this, and please be reassured we will be reporting deeply on it.
Thank you very much. I know, and I don't have a solution for this right now in this space. One of the ongoing conversations at SEAC has been around absence data that no school board actually collects. And I think it really goes to the reasons, because the ministry does not have a framework for collecting this information. So as was highlighted by Lori in her deputation or her delegation, that, you know, when a kid has an issue, is asked to stay home for a number of reasons, is asked to be picked up early, those things aren't tracked, and it's generally referred to as soft exclusions. I think it's an important when we get that report on attendance for us as a board to have that conversation. Soft exclusions came up as a topic of conversation this past weekend at OPSPA as well. This is not unique to the TDSB by far. I will say in terms of things like attendance and where we find challenges, it's exacerbated outside of urban boards. So when transportation becomes an issue, when you live far from your school, when you just don't have the funding, we don't have the funding, nobody has the funding. No board is funded adequately for special education, for safety, for mental health. And it is showing up in some places I don't want to say shocking, because that would mean I would be surprised by the data, but heartbreaking, I guess is the better term, heartbreaking attendance rates across the province. And so the discussion of soft exclusions, where we would go as boards to advocate to the ministry for the proper supports that mean we don't have soft exclusions, but also that we need to be able to understand the data, because this, and if you look at reports from a lot of our partner or adjacent organizations like Community Living Toronto, and I'm forgetting the other organization that published earlier this year. There are a number of different organizations that are actually raising alarms about things like students being asked to stay home, like Lori said. I think we're doing really good things, like the additions of attendance counselors, really head on tackling attendance, and there are boards doing new campaigns. But I think this is the starting point for where we serve student success. I mean, all the math strategies in the world aren't going to work if the kids aren't coming to school. And unfortunately, that is more common for students with special education needs. And it is tied directly to funding. So I think that's a bigger conversation. And when we get that data, I would really appreciate us having that conversation about how we get to the information that we need to help our system serve students with needs as best. I don't want to say as best as we can, like in the best way. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Arts. Trustee Klein is the last trustee on the speakers list.
Well, my questions have been answered through the further probing of my colleagues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Klein. And I'm just looking to governance for the motion.
Okay, I sent the motion. It's the same, but reworded with the director to consider. Okay, thank you. So I'm open to any other feedback or amendments. This was literally me just taking what ICCAC had requested and moving it into the director consider format. I did just want to, before getting into this motion, have one more question for staff. So the modified day form and the reason for asking to be shown the form is just to understand what data is being collected. It's not to see individual student data. Like, I understand that it's something that principals fill in, but this is something that the committees have been asking to see, just the actual form itself. Is that not something that can be done? Because I'm starting to hear, I'm a bit confused about what I heard now in reflecting on it.
Thank you.
Associate Director?
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Executive Superintendent Palmer, go right ahead through the chair.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't see anybody except Trustee Dawson. So we can certainly consider that, Trustee Dawson, so we will take that back. Thanks.
Okay, great. So I guess my only last comment on this is I really hope that we can do these things. Like, it is so critical to understand why children are missing school, who they are, and how that intersects with various other factors like poverty, for instance. So I do think that this is extremely important for us to not just pass, but to be considered, to actually be considered. And with that, I will turn it to my colleagues. I need a seconder if anyone is interested in seconding. Thank you, Trustee King.
You have a mover and a seconder. Is there any further discussion on the motion? It's moved by Trustee Dawson, seconded by Trustee King. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we're opening the vote.
Stand in favor.
Trustee King, Trustee Hastings, how do you vote? You're in favor? And that carries. Thank you. So we're moving to the next item on the agenda. The Parent Involvement Advisory Committee report of January 21st, 2025, the items of school lunchbox, and a second item, parent caregivers being able to coach school sport teams that involvement has expressed interest. And I believe we have the co-chair of PIAC here to present the recommendations.
Good evening.
Oh,
Not quite sure if I'm officially formally supposed to introduce myself.
okay, welcome. PIAC co-chair Zina Sherrick to speak on this report.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Thank you for having me here. You have the report, and there are 2 items on there. Thank you. And one of them, the lunchbox, speaks to a platform of fundraising efforts in schools. You guys may or may not be familiar with it, but I'm sure you've become familiar with it. And the concern in that recommendation is about the reporting of funds that are generated through Lunchbox. Since this recommendation was developed, there have been staff reporting on the items in that motion. Recommendation, and there's staff in the room that might be able to speak to that, and I'd be happy if they did. So there is progress in that. This recommendation is to put it on the radar, to talk about how information is shared, how the efforts of fundraising in schools across the board are taking place, parent engagement when it comes to information and sharing that information, and how that is displayed, how that is ingested and understood, and asking questions about the information being received. So it's a pretty lengthy recommendation with different points, with the director to speak to and report back as well. And so I know that is in progress. But again, this is a recommendation being brought to keep this on the radar, to be aware of what is happening when it comes to the Lunchbox program and the concerns around monies being generated, and where the money lives once it's been generated and how that's being spent.
Thank you. And just looking if there are any questions for the PIAC co-chair, Zina Sherrick. Any online? Thank you. And Zina, did you want to speak to the item number 2 as well?
Absolutely. So item, oh, sorry, I'll stop talking. Oh, okay. That's my hand. I'm still
Okay.
with my hand.
First.
Okay, we'll go on.
Thank you.
So item number 2 is around another form of engagement that parents and caregivers are experiencing across the system. And that speaks to coaching teams at schools when there isn't a teacher present. There is a policy around this. And so this recommendation is asking for the director to report back to how that policy is being rolled out, how that policy is being used to hopefully engage more parents and caregivers in being able to coach students of the board when a teacher is not present, but there's a request or there is a request or a need coming from the students, from the community in the school to have a particular team or have a particular event. And so again, items in this recommendation are asking the director to report back. And again, to my understanding, there are staff currently working on receiving this information and getting back to PIAC. Again, this is just a recommendation to put it out there, keep it on the radar, and hoping for more progress on the communication of being able to allow and engage parents and caregivers and being able to support engagement of students across the board.
Thank you. I see Trustee Laskin.
Thank you very much. And this one specifically, I know this well because I was the one that moved the motion back in, I think it was 2005. I can't remember when. And it's in our policy on parents and student engagement. And it's really clear where there is no staff volunteer, the principal will communicate with the school council and have the support of their school superintendent for activities that require volunteers. The principal's decision regarding the activity and the volunteer is final with no appeal. So we have a mechanism now, school by school, and it's in policy. So I'm just not quite sure what a report back is because it's a school by school issue as opposed to a system piece. But I think I'd like to hear from staff about that when it's the appropriate time to hear from staff. But I just want to mention that this is embedded right now in our policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Laskin. Just looking to see if there are any other trustees with questions for the PIAC co-chair. Yes, no? Yeah, Trustee King.
Thank you, through Chair. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit more to the motivation, if this is driven by a decrease or a lack of extracurriculars that are happening, whether it's driven by a desire for increased parent engagement and involvement. And then second question apart from that, again, anecdotally, some of the experience and concerns that I've heard brought to me are about having staff supervision in the building. So less so about whether or not there is a teacher to take on the responsibility of a team or a club. When there are qualified parents that would like to take over that responsibility, I believe that our policies still require that a principal is there or designates somebody else to be in the building. And I'm just trying to decipher if that's part of the issue here, or is it strictly about the parent and the coaching piece?
It's a really good question. Thank you. It's a combination. As Trustee Laskin mentioned, the board is so vast and great that the experiences are different when it comes to engagement and specific sites. So this is just more a call to find that consistency and to make sure that everybody sort of is on the same page and that everybody understands. The situations get very specific. As mentioned earlier, they are very much from site to site, but this is to sort of gather up the voice and the communication to find out where it can get better and where that policy can be better, even better shared with parents and caregivers so they are completely on board with knowing exactly. Some parents, caregivers are completely aware of the policy. Some, are challenged by really wanting that sports team to be able to exist and just not realizing where the barriers are. So it's one of those things where it's just not a review because it does exist. It's not reviewing it. It's more a case of getting back to how to make sure that everybody has the opportunity if they want that, if that makes any sense. So it's varied. It's not specific to just one area of it. It's a bit of both. The experiences are different across the board when it comes to how sports teams are able to function and what possible barriers they are. And again, it's very specific. It's very vast. And this is just trying to make sure that everybody collectively, it's also trying to get the director aware of, maybe what's happening and sort of how to report back and say, okay, now this is how we want to function because this is what the policy is. So I apologize, it's not just one specific, but again, to the point, that's a large board, right? So everyone's experience is slightly different.
Yeah, thank you. That was all for me.
Thank you, Trustee King. Trustee Laskin.
Sorry, I do understand the motivation behind it and I appreciate that. My biggest concern is the comparison that might happen from school to school with this kind of data. And I'm quite worried about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Laskin. Seeing no one else on the speakers list, thank you, Azina, for coming and presenting the PIAC reports.
Thank you.
So at this point, we're going to turn to staff, taking each item one at a time, and we'll begin with the school box, the school lunch box item. Over to staff.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. We have taken steps to address the requests of PIAC with respect to this item, including the presentation in February of 2025. but we will endeavor to prepare a small package for principals to describe the difference between school lunchbox and school cash online as a tool for assisting in fundraising, and distribute that to principals. On the issue of coaching without staff, the procedure is clear, as Trustee Laskin has noted.
Excuse me, Executive Superintendent Negro, I think we're going to take each item.
Oh,
So,
certainly.
so we're going to give trustees an opportunity to ask any questions they have on the first item and deal with the first item. So looking around, trustees, Trustee Dawson?
Thank you through the chair. So I'm familiar with School Cash Online. I'm not familiar with Lunchbox. Does staff have any concerns with these recommendations, and how would you like to see them presented otherwise, if so?
Through you, Madam Chair, no concerns, and we will again endeavor to provide the information that has been requested through PIAC to principals so that they have full awareness of the difference between both.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't see anyone else on the speakers list. On this item, it looked like it was referral to staff to develop the communication strategy on both Lunchbox and School Cash Online programs. You had mentioned to principals, I think the ask here was the communication strategy to also include school councils. Just clarifying that piece. So is there anyone willing to, Associate Director Salmon?
So thank you, and through the chair. When I look at 5.2.1, number 3, where it says it's this TDSB direct the Director of Education to ensure. I think that will be a challenge because that's not within the purview to direct the Director of Education to ensure. And once again, when I go to number 1, TDSB direct the Director of Education.
Thank you, Associate Director Salmon. So according to the information that the Executive Superintendent Negro provided, some of the information being requested had already been provided to PIAC. That's what I heard?
That's correct. Through you, Madam Chair.
Okay. So it looks like, and I think we would need this motion moved and seconded, that what's being asked here in the recommendation be referred to staff to develop a communication strategy regarding Lunchbox and the School Cash Online programs to principals and school councils. So we would need a mover and a seconder.
Through you, Chair. Sorry, through you, Chair. I just wanted to go back to make sure I'm clear on the comments from Associate Director Salmon. I think what you were trying to communicate is that 4, 5, and 6 are essentially a duplication
It is the
of 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. But part of the concern in which it was also the concern around the last conversation that we just had around the director consider, and staff is more than happy to provide, but directing the Director of Education to ensure, like, we don't even actually use the word ensure in our procedures and our policies for a very specific reason, because we don't ensure anything. We will certainly move to to our best efforts to provide the information, but I'm just concerned about directing the Director of Education and then even the word ensure. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're going to need governance to do an edit and put that up on the screen. So we're going to take a 2-minute recess while governance gets the correct wording up on the screen. Okay, welcome back. We're back from the recess. And the motion is up on the screen. Based on the information that the discussion that we just had about the information that's already been provided to PIAC. So we need a mover and a seconder on the motion.
Through you, Chair, I'd like to move that this is number 1, 2, and 3 are referred to staff to follow through on what we heard earlier from staff.
And the seconder, Trustee Dawson. Do we need further discussion on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, we'll put it to the vote. All in favor?
Is it going on e-screen?
Describe or
No, show of hands.
show of hands? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries. Thank you. So we'll go to the next item. The parents caregiver being able to coach school sport teams without teacher involvement where no teacher has expressed interest. Could we have staff speak to this?
Through you, Madam Chair. In the report, we note procedure 558 And in section 9 of that procedure, it's very clear on which types of sports qualify for certain types of parental assistance and which will need principal or teacher involvement to ensure that we are covering all our liability needs and safety needs as well. So once again, our recommendation is to refer back to staff.
Thank you, Executive Superintendent Negro. I have Trustee McLean on the speakers list.
Thank you, and through the chair. I guess I'm not understanding if it's redundant because we already have a policy that does this, then I'm not understanding what we're referring it. I'm not understanding the purpose of referring it back to staff. If this, does the current policy need tweaking, or does this expand the current application of what's already on our books?
Thank you. Through to staff.
No, it doesn't. There's no change that is required to the policy, or sorry, to the procedures. So I hope that answers the question.
Well, I think that, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, if it's redundant and we don't need it to meet the goals of what's being requested, are we not concerned that referring it back to staff creates an expectation of something that no one's going to be doing? Like, what is staff doing this when we give it back to them? I'm really not, and I'm not trying to be difficult. If it's our position that we already have this is a real concern that we have a real solution in place for, then what are we giving it back to staff to do? And if we're going to give it back to staff because there's a point, then I think I'm always in favor of putting a timeline around when we can expect it back so that it doesn't get aimlessly lost. So I would also like, if there's a point to doing it and you're going to do something with it, what a reasonable timeline would be around when the committee could expect it back.
For you, Madam Chair, by referring back to staff, I was implying that we could just respond to the request of PIAC with the information that I've just cited in PR 558 at the next PIAC meeting.
Thank you. So that's the clarification. It's that the recommendation is to refer the matter back to staff to share information with PIAC regarding policy and procedure with regard to the recommendations.
Sure. Good.
I believe that makes it a bit more clear what's happening with the referral. Thank you. Trustee Klein.
I'm just trying to get through the chair, just a clarification again, I'm really struggling to understand why we're revisiting this. I guess Trustee McLean was asking this question too, but why just liability? If you can just please, a question for staff. Tell me more about liability and staff presence, whatnot, when you have available and willing parents to take up the charge.
Thank you, and through the chair. And there is a procedure that's on the books that we are following. I think part of the challenge for parents is the fact that at times we don't have enough staff to supervise specific activities. When I deal with athletics, and I'll take the example of football. We've gone from a board that used to have a significant amount of football programs at the secondary level to a board that literally has a lot fewer teams, lots of reasons, and it is liability based because football equipment, if you take the helmet has to be renewed every 5 years. If you take the actual physical material, once again, it also has to be renewed X number of years. And so when it comes to the coaching, and it also requires a minimum of 3 coaches as opposed to simply just 1 coach. And so part of the challenge has been around legal liability and having community coaches or community staff. We always have a staff advisor. Even if that advisor may not be an expert in that particular area, we always have to have someone from the liability perspective that is a board employee support. So sometimes we bring in 3 community coaches, 2 community coaches, 1 community coach, but there's a staff advisor that's assigned to them. At times, there's a real challenge in getting staff advisors, especially during the pandemic and post-pandemic period. It has been difficult in certain schools. So I think PIAC is just trying to get at, hey, how do we get to a place where we have more of these activities happening in our schools as they did previously, but we have to just make sure as a board that we are ensuring that from a liability insurance perspective, that we are on solid ground, because when things happen, they happen and it becomes really, really problematic for us as an organization. So we want to support. I want to see us every single activity in every single school. That's what most of us have made our lives about in schools, but we want to make sure we're doing it safely. That's all. Thank you.
May I? Yes, thank you through the chair. But if we make it easier for parents to join our school communities as community coaches, perhaps then that effort there will inspire some staff, knowing that they don't have so much extra on their shoulders, just to take up that position of being that present staff. So we do ensure that that we're covered.
Thank you, Trustee Klein. Did you need were you looking for a response from staff on that? Or was that just a final comment?
Well, I guess want more clarification on the liability issue. I mean, you talked about the equipment. Is this also physical presence that you're referring to as well while an activity is going on?
It's both. It is. We've had extensive conversations with risk management around what the expectations are with respect to the risks and the liability. And so it is both areas that is of concern to us. I'm not sure if Executive Superintendent Negro would like to speak to any of it.
Through you, Madam Chair, we did consult with our risk management office and received a pretty full liability assessment for the request. So happy to share that with those that are interested.
Thank you. So I'm looking to see if there are any further questions. That's it. Okay, thank you. So having had that information from the Associate Director, Salmon, and Executive Superintendent Negro around the procedure. So we're looking for a motion that the matter be referred to staff to share information with PIAC regarding PR 558. And we need it up on the screen. Moved by Trustee Dawson, seconded by, we have a seconded by Trustee King. Just going to do show of hands. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that carries. Thank you so much. So the next item on the agenda is the staff report, R.H. King Modified Calendar Review. And through the staff, who will be speaking to this.
Through the chair, I'll ask Executive Superintendent Otto to speak to this.
Thank you, Associate Director Salmon, and through the chair. In 2013-2014, RH King Academy had requested a modified school year calendar in response to the results of the TDSB School Climate Survey. RH King worked in collaboration with TDSB Research Department and they were tasked to determine and understand the impact of the modified calendar. At the end of the pilot project, which was intended for 3 years, there was intended to be a review of the impact on students and staff. This review did not take place in part to the impact of the pandemic. So the modified school calendar continued to be implemented in the ensuing years. In an effort to bring RH King Academy in line with the secondary school year program, a decision was made and communicated to the school community that the modified school year calendar would cease to be in existence for the 2024-25 school year. After a review of the original motion, a decision was made to pause and the planning began the completion of the review. So in 2023-2024, RH King Academy went through a research component to see and understand the impact of the modified school calendar. So there were 2 phases of review. Phase 1 looked at the historical data that included 3 years of the survey and how it impacted staff, students, and the community, included data points such as student census and the EQAO data. The second phase, working with research, we looked to understand the impact on the central departments, such as people and cultures, had consultations with the unions and professional support services. And what we heard over in high numbers is that staffs and students were very happy with the modified school calendar. The central departments had no major concerns based on the current scale. And so as a result, for you in this report is a recommendation that the modified school year calendar at RH King Academy be approved with effect from 2026-27 school year, subjected to the ministry approval in accordance with Section 5 of the Ontario regulations. And I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Trustee Laskin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm really happy to see this here, and I'm sure the student trustees are as well, because this was one of their keen issues. I am curious if any other secondary schools within the board have ever expressed interest in modifying their school year calendar. It's just an interest of, I'm interested through you, Madam Chair, to staff.
Thank you, Trustee Laskin, for that question. None that have come to our attention, and I think part of this is scale.
Thank you. I was just curious. Because just to add, I mean, prior to COVID, we had a variety of secondary school models. We've seemed to have consolidated now into the semester system. So I'm wondering if the next step could possibly be expanding into other models. So that's the reason for my question. I still get some complaints from all your schools that had to go to a semestered model, but I think it's much easier for staffing purposes and gives students more choice from a programming perspective. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Student Trustee Bell.
Through the chair, thank you very much for this particular report. It was a pleasure to read and share with students at RH King and also students across the board as well, as this is something that they are really passionate about and really appreciate staff working so quickly on this once it was brought to our attention. My question really just dives into the longevity of the program, hopefully pending ministry approval in accordance with Section 5. I wanted to ask if staff was looking towards the options of being able to expand the program more so at scale, like you were speaking at before, if there's any steps that you have in place, or if you're currently just pending that ministry approval first.
Thank you, and through the chair. At this time, we were tasked to look at one specific school, R.H. King. That would require a different analysis because as we scale up, there are other considerations like transportation and also financial implications.
Thank you. I believe I have no other further questions. Just very excited for the RH King community.
Wonderful. Thank you, Student Trustee Bell. And thank you, Executive Superintendent Dado. Did you have anything further, or is that the conclusion of your report?
Oh, that's the conclusion. I just wanted to say that I'm glad that we were able to follow a clearly outlined process, and working with RH King student, staff, and community was a pleasure, and I'm glad that we were able to land on this. It's a good news story for the community.
Wonderful. So at this point, I need a mover and a seconder. The recommendation is that the modified school year calendar at RH King be approved with effect from the 2026-2027 school year, subject to ministry approval in accordance with Section 5 Reg 304. Moved by Trustee Dawson, seconded by, looking for a seconder? Student trustees and the students are excited about this. A lot of work went in.
I can second it. I'm fine. I can second.
I had Hastings, Trustee Hastings beat you to the punch. Thank you. So we have a mover and a seconder, and moved by Trustee Dawson, seconded by Trustee Hastings. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that carries. So that brings us to the last item on our agenda, adjournment. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Trustee Dawson, seconded by?
Trustee Patel.
Trustee Patel. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone, for attending. The meeting is adjourned.